Before we get into the video, I just want to quickly say that this video does have spoilers for Final Fantasy VII and possibly spoilers for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and whatever future other remake games that they're going to be making. So you have been warned. A couple days ago, Final Fantasy VII turned 26 in Japan. It's crazy to think that it's been 26 years since we met characters such as Cloud, Tifa, Barret, Yuffie, Aerith, Vincent, Cid, and many more characters in the series. And I'm just thankful to be born in an era where I got to play and experience these games for the first time for myself. And honestly, this is a big thank you from me to Square Enix for making such a well done story that has impacted people like me for such a long time. When it comes to a newer generation of Final Fantasy VII fans, we now proudly have the remake games that have been coming out, which allow for old and new fans to experience what is possibly one of Square Enix's biggest and most epic stories with a new spin to things. Something that has been on people's minds has to be Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and when we are going to be getting new news and information on this brand new experience that every single Final Fantasy VII fan wants to play. I found an article today talking about Final Fantasy VII's 26th anniversary from VG247.com. Link will be in description. That does talk a bit about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Final Fantasy VII as a whole. It's a really cool read, and I suggest that you take the time to go onto their website, check it out, and read it for yourself, as we're only going to be talking about 3 different questions that was brought up in this interview that I really want to highlight for this video. It's an interview between them and Yoshinori Kitase, who is the director of Final Fantasy VII and was also the producer of Final Fantasy VII Remake. So this is definitely going to be the site that gives us a lot more information, as he is the guy. He's the guy who literally directed the original Final Fantasy VII, and I'm just so proud that we get to have another interview with him in this article. But of course, before we get right into it, I just want to say thank you guys so much for just clicking on the video, and if you guys could actually just help me out a little bit more in the algorithm by just going down below and hitting the like button, it'd be super awesome. And if you want to see more Final Fantasy news and Rebirth and 16 stuff, definitely check out my channel, as we are covering a lot of different Final Fantasy stuff here. So please stay tuned and stick around, and I will definitely be covering more information as it does come out on the channel. The first one that we're going to dive right into talks a little bit about the original Final Fantasy VII and what the team was feeling like when it came towards this idea and how they made the environments and whatnot. So the question starts. Something I love about Final Fantasy VII is the feeling that at the time the team were just adding and adding ideas and not necessarily worrying about how something might fit in. The result is a world with an amazing breadth. When you're in Midgar, it seems hard to even imagine a more traditional RPG location like Calm could even exist in the same world. And when you're at Calm, the idea of a place like the Golden Saucer feels outright futuristic. Then suddenly you're snowboarding. Was this a conscious idea during development, or was it something that just happened as artists got a grip with the 3D tools? Yoshinori Kitase did respond and said, during development, we had a policy of putting in as many of the interesting ideas that the team brought to the table as we could. Our thinking was not to worry too much about the alignment of consistency and to treat it as a tiled toy box. We felt that stuffing in as much cool and interesting stuff as possible would create an even bigger feeling of wonder and excitement. This was not so much a deliberate approach though, but more like the spirit that the Final Fantasy team had from the start. So to me, I think it's really cool to hear like this little part right here, to see what was going on in the minds of the development team when it came to Final Fantasy VII. Of course, we already know, and if you've already played Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VII has just absolutely so many places and environments that it's honestly really cool to like even think about now that we had such crazy rich environments for the team. And that's one of the things that makes Final Fantasy VII just absolutely special, is the environments that we go to. You can go from a mountain on Nibelheim, and then you can get like this pyramid type vibe when you go to the Temple of the Ancients, which I honestly really adore and love when it comes to Final Fantasy VII. You go to such crazy unique locations that honestly, like, it's really cool when you really think about it. Like, there's so many locations, and I just absolutely can't wait for them to finally see them in HD, maybe even 4K when Final Fantasy VII Rebirth comes out at some point either this year or next year. But it's going to be awesome to see the progress and see Rebirth show off all these locations, and I'm just absolutely excited and cannot wait to just like see all these old locations in a newer environment and in the Unreal Engine 5, which is going to be absolutely crazy. So that's something that I truly am excited to see. Moving on, we have the next question, which is going into the compilation, you and the team had a chance to change, reveal, or retcon elements of the story if you wanted to. For instance, Rufus and Sengen appear to die in Final Fantasy VII, which oh my god, I remember that. But then being revealed as alive in Advent Children, and even outright revealing that humans did survive wholly at the end. What was it like making story decisions like this? Changing story elements and revealing new information without changing the impact of the original game. So Kitase responds with, we approached the Final Fantasy VII remake project with the aim to make it something that could be enjoyed by both fans of the original game and people who did not know it. I have also had experiences where a game that I loved and had a lot of fun with in the past was remade, and I bought it, played it out of the overwhelming nostalgia. It is enjoyable for a while, but the fun from that nostalgia only really lasts through the first session. I realized this halfway through and didn't carry on playing. Because of this, I decided that Final Fantasy VII Remake would not appeal to nostalgia, but would include a new story as well to feel both nostalgic and fresh at the same time. The result of this is that for part 2 and 3, we're able to give fans the excitement of wondering which parts will be 100% faithful to the original and where the new elements will be added. So this is something that I've actually felt a lot of the time, where if I do pick up a game that is remade and is, you know, upscale to HD, I'm like, oh, it's cool, it's awesome. I felt this pain before where I pick up the game, I get nostalgia, I enjoy it for my nostalgia, and then at some point I just stop playing because nostalgia can only carry you so far. And I honestly am really happy that Yoshinori understood this and is making it so that there is changes to what once was in the original material. Of course, we all know that it's not always going to change 100%. Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion didn't get any changes whatsoever. It was literally ported from the PSP all the way to PlayStation 4 and 5 and other consoles, but I don't think that's a bad experience entirely. I think it's still really cool for people who want to go back, replay the game that originally came out, and as well, it was really important towards the story when it came towards the future of Final Fantasy VII, and I think that game is going to have a lot of implications when it's going to come towards the future of the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth experience. And again, I've already made a video talking about this a little bit, but I'll probably make another one pretty much saying like, yo, don't skip this game, and you guys should actually just go back and check it out. But regardless, it's one of those things where it's like, I like the fact that Yoshinori and the team said, hey, listen, we have to change a couple things here and there. And it's going to be really cool and awesome to see in Rebirth the certain things that are going to change as well. We already know Avalanche is different here. We already know Wutai is different here. We know that Zack is a little bit different than before, or the events of what happened in Crisis Core Reunion aren't exactly going to be the events that we're going to be following within the remake Rebirth saga, which is really cool to know and understand. And I really am excited to see where they're going to take the story when it comes towards Final Fantasy VII. And I think that that's also something that is really cool for people who have already played the original games to experience too. It's something new that we experienced. Of course, yes, certain changes are definitely not going to be favored than most, but I think that the changes make it so that the experience is a lot more enjoyable for people who are just jumping right back in or who already know the original material when it comes towards Final Fantasy VII. A good look at this actually is Marvel. When you look at Marvel movies, and probably a lot of people are not going to agree with me, but if you are a comic book fan and have read the original stories, well, all these comic book characters, they are not their movie interpretation. And it's really cool like that because you get to see the small Easter eggs that do make them their comic book character. But at the same time though, they're not 100% one-to-one, which is okay because changing things that have already had their material done is a good thing. And I think that it makes it so that if you're an old fan or a new fan, it makes it so that both people are happy at the end of the day, which is totally awesome. Now that I've finished my rambling, let's get on to the last question. This one's going to be really short and simple, and I'll try to keep it short, but how has your relationship with the game changed over the years? In particular, as you've returned to the universe with the compilation and remake, has how you feel about the game changed over the years with a retrospective eye? Kitase responded with, ever since I joined the games industry, I've always set to myself the theme of creating drama through games. With the original Final Fantasy VII, the shift from the style of the previous 16-bit hardware to the latest 3D CG allowed for massive increase in the power to depict characters and stories, and became the origin of the dramatic storytelling style that is still used in the latest Final Fantasy titles today, which is crazy. On the other hand, when I looked back at the game, the original model for Cloud was only 400 polygons and looked a bit like a doll carved out of wood. So the older I got, the more I wanted to update him. The original Final Fantasy VII has been loved by the fans for over 20 years, but I started to feel that I didn't want it to finish up as something in an archive and wanted it to make it a title that continues to be loved for another 100 years to come. And honestly, Kitase, it's definitely going to be a title where I'm going to show my kids. I'm going to show them the remake. I'll even show them the original game if they ever want to play it, but it's definitely going to be something that is going to be loved for the next 100 years. Final Fantasy VII has an incredible story, a story that honestly is so good and makes it so that any fan of Final Fantasy, it will jump in, love it, love the characters, and it's honestly awesome. And I just can't wait to talk a little bit more about Final Fantasy VII, because it's a game that honestly is made for Final Fantasy fans, and I think that it's one of those things where if you do miss it, you're missing out on a lot. So honestly, with those closing remarks, I understand Kitase. Sometimes you look back on your old work and you say, man, I really want to make this look better. It's kind of like art, where you look back on it and you say, man, it's a little bit updated, but you know what? It's one of my favorite pieces of art that I made way back then. Let's make this art, draw it, make it even better than what it is today. So that's kind of where I'm getting the vibe from Kitase and the team, honestly. And I'm really just happy and excited to see where the games go from here. But without further ado, guys, this concludes the entire interview. Shout outs to VG247.com for actually uploading this and talking to Kitase one-on-one. If I had questions for Kitase, honestly, I don't really know what I would ask myself, but man, these were some of the most interesting questions from this entire interview. If you guys want to check out the interview, which you definitely should, the link will be in the description, guys. Trust me, it's a really good read. It talks about Final Fantasy VII, the original like thought processes from the team and whatnot, who's their favorite characters, which characters they would take during their party, which characters they would kill, and so much more. So definitely go into the link in the description down below and check out the entire article for yourself, because it's a really good read and I definitely think that you will be missing out. But if you guys want to see any more Final Fantasy VII stuff, any more Final Fantasy 16 stuff, definitely check out the playlist that I will also have in the link in the description down below for those certain things. And as well, make sure that you guys stay subscribed to the channel, as we are on the road to 500 subscribers. We are literally almost there, so please consider subscribing. But without further ado, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks, guys, for taking your time out of the day to watch it. My name is Adam, also known as V2, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care, stay awesome, have a good one.